iron, writing, and the stars, the geniuses of ancient Africa. Let's travel back in time to discover the wonders our African ancestors invented. Did you know that long before phones and cars, Africans already knew how to make iron tools, write messages on stones, and observe the stars? Yes, it's true. Thanks to scholars like Cheikh Anta Diop from Senegal, we know that Africa is the cradle of great civilizations. In this course, we will talk about 3 brilliant inventions: iron metallurgy in Nubia, modern-day Sudan, the Meroitic writing of the kings of Kush, and the astronomy of the Dogon people in Mali. Get ready to be proud of your continent. Iron metallurgy in Nubia, modern-day Sudan. Long ago, in the land now called Sudan, lived a very strong people, the Nubians. They were the first in Africa to master fire to transform rock into iron. How? They took black stones, iron ore, and heated them in a very hot furnace. The iron became liquid, then they poured it into molds to make spears, knives, hoes, and swords. These iron tools were much stronger than those made of stone or wood. With an iron hoe, farmers could dig the earth more easily and harvest more food. With an iron spear, hunters could catch large animals. Iron metallurgy helped the Nubians become powerful. They built great cities and pyramids. Today, there are more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt. Archaeologists have found iron furnaces over 2,500 years old. Thanks to scholars like Cheikh Anta Diop, we know these techniques were born in Black Africa, not elsewhere. This knowledge then traveled to other regions of the continent. Meroitic writing, the messages of the kings of Kush in the same kingdom of Nubia. There was a very famous capital, Meroe. The kings and queens of Meroe wanted to tell their stories so that future generations would remember them. So they invented their own writing, Meroitic script. Do you know the alphabet? Well, the Meroitic people also had an alphabet, with 23 signs. They carved these signs on stones, in temples, and on pyramids. The signs represented sounds. For example, a lion meant the sound L, and I the sound I? No, it was simpler. They had symbols for each letter. Inscriptions have been found on steely large standing stones that tell of the king's victories, offerings to the gods, and powerful queens. Unfortunately, today no one can perfectly read this writing. But African researchers like Professor Abdelgader Mahmoud from Sudan are working to decipher it. Meroitic writ. ING shows that Africans knew how to write long before the arrival of colonists. It is proof of our ancient intelligence. Dogon astronomy, the secrets of the stars. Mali. Now, let's go to Mali in West Africa. The Dogon people live there. The Dogon are very famous for their knowledge of the sky. Without a telescope, they knew that the star Sirius, the brightest in the sky, has a small invisible sister called Sirius B. European astronomers only discovered this star in the 19th century with instruments. How did the Dogon know? They say their ancestors received this knowledge from beings from the sky. But scholars think the Dogon observed the sky for a very long time, generation after generation. They also have a calendar based on the stars to know when to plant seeds. The Dogon tell myths about the stars, for example, that the planet Jupiter orbits the sun. That's incredible. The great thinker Cheikh Anta Diop studied the Dogon and showed that their science is very ancient. Today, African astrophysicists like Dr. Keba Ndiaye from Senegal continue to study the sky, inspired by this traditional knowledge. The Dogon teach us that observing nature is doing science. Key takeaways. 1. The Nubians Sudan invented iron metallurgy in Africa over 2,500 years ago. 2. The Meroitic people created their own writing to tell the history of their kings. 3. The Dogon Mali knew about the star Sirius B long before telescopes. 4. These inventions show that Africa is the cradle of great civilizations. 5. We must be proud of our ancestors and continue learning to build a strong Africa. Activity: draw on a sheet of paper an iron object that the Nubians used, for example, a spear or a hoe. Then, invent a small symbol for each letter of your first name, like the Meroitic people. Write your first name with these symbols next to the drawing. Finally, tonight, look at the sky with an adult and find the brightest star. Tell your parents, the Dogon already knew this star.